5 o'clock in the West Falmouth Library. I'm Eric Turkington, Chairman of the committee, and I'd like to start this evening with a moment of silence on behalf of Branch Parish, who for 25 years was the heart and soul of West Falmouth, and everyone who knew him liked him, and deserves a minute of silence. Thank you. I'll run through briefly the agenda for tonight, and then run through briefly what brought us here, and then Sia will do the heavy lifting, which is to explain everything that the town has been doing to investigate the issues that all the neighbors have raised in the past about the town's plan. The practice tonight, we're going to have a briefing by Sia, and the questions and answers between Sia and the West Falmouth community residents. At which point we'll ask anyone who wants to speak to state their name. You all know who you are, the committee members do not. And after that, we'll have comments and questions from the committee members and others in attendance. But the principal purpose is to have the folks in West Falmouth who have expressed concerns either in writing as part of the CWMP or in other ways to have their concerns addressed and hopefully answered. I'd like to introduce the committee. We have two of us are missing tonight. One of us is at sea, and the other is at work. And the rest of us don't have either excuse. So we have Virginia Rayleigh, former selectman, who I'm sure you all know. Steve Layton, a distinguished former scientist from the government, back when they had people working for them. Ron Zweig, when he's not advising the town on shellfish propagation, is advising countries on that subject. And Lynn Monroe, a distinguished former economist for the state of New York, and myself, a former selectman and state rep. We have Sia Cartless, who is the technical consultant to the committee, and we have our town administrator, Julie Tuso, who's honoring us with his presence here tonight. I'll give a few introductory remarks and then say the hard part goes to her. 30 years ago, this town made a mistake, and I think everyone in this room is acutely aware of that. They designed a sewer system, and they did not adequately design what was going to happen to the effluent. The consultants were wrong, they weren't challenged enough, and West Falmouth ended up with a big slug of heavy-duty nitrogen-laden wastewater heading down to the harbor, which is one reason that this harbor has had environmental problems for a number of years. The town spent $15 million, and it's taken 15 years for that problem to be eradicated. In the next couple of years, that slug of high nitrogen will pass through and presumably will be no longer affecting West Falmouth Harbor. But anyone in West Falmouth who feels aggrieved by that decision is right to feel that way. And the one thing this committee has thought from the day one, and the one thing the selectmen have made it clear, we are not going to make that kind of mistake again in West Falmouth or anywhere else. So that's why we have been doing what we have been doing. The big picture here, and I'll just spend a couple of minutes on it because everyone may not be familiar with it, but this is all part of a plan that's been approved by the selectmen and by town meeting and the voters to restore the town's estuaries, including, and very much including, West Falmouth Harbor. This town is on the cutting edge of developing and implementing alternatives like inlet widening, shellfish propagation, eco toilets, PRBs. These are all ideas that will protect and enhance the estuaries if they work. We're going to find out in Falmouth if they work, because we're actually doing it as opposed to talking about it. The plan does include sewering. It includes as little sewering as possible in the densest part of town, around the worst impacted estuary in the whole town, which is Wood Pond. Earlier plans, which a number of you have been concerned about, called for a lot more sewer, 2.1 milligrams per day, million gallons per day, 1.6 million gallons per day. This plan is not those plans. The plan that we're forging ahead with calls for sewer 0.26 million gallons a day, a vastly lower figure, a quarter million gallons a day. The actual amount that would be treated in practice is going to be substantially less than that, because every time this town or the state requires you to build something, they require you to overbuild. So the quantities that will end up going to the plant from this sewered area will be considerably less than even that 2.26 million gallons a day. When it gets to the plant, it's going to be treated, and we'll talk a little bit about the treatment. But it's going to be treated and then go somewhere, and that's what we're talking about today. How did we get to the site we're talking about today? The town for the last several years has been looking at every imaginable site for this treated discharge. Okay? As you can see, there were 25 sites that were explored in detail by the town, and the next one will show you the criteria that the town applied in looking at these sites. First of all, it could not have any adverse impact on any estuary. Well, that's easy to say. This town has more estuaries than any town in Massachusetts. We have 15 of them that are getting the MEP full treatment studies, and we have one that. There's smaller ones that aren't getting a study, but we have a lot of estuaries. The other criteria was that no significant degradation or impairment of any of the other water bodies. Falmouth has 141 lakes and ponds. Those too had to be carefully watched out for. Not excluding, in fact, especially including Crocker Pond. It couldn't be discharged in any drinking water zone of contribution, which encompasses all the area around Long Pond and Coonmessett Pond and a whole bunch of different places where we get drinking water. It had to be a reasonably good-sized parcel. Public ownership of the parcel was important, because if you didn't own it and the owner didn't want to sell it, the town was not about to get into takings for this purpose. The distance from the treatment plant mattered, because it's very expensive to treat it and then pump it miles and miles to another location. It obviously couldn't be put in densely developed areas, because it couldn't make the parcel large enough. And the policy decision was made not to put it into any protected conservation areas. So with that kind of criteria, looking at all those 25 sites, the town concluded that this Site 7, for a number of reasons, was a good one. Mr. Bunker and others raised objections. Their neighbors, they're concerned about it. Well, they should be. They put an article in the town meeting listing their concerns. At the town meeting, the committee and Mr. Bunker agreed on this language. It was unanimously passed by the town meeting, and it lays out what we should be looking at, what we should be doing before anything happens that would in any way impact any of these downstream water bodies, including Crocker Pond. So the discharge planning thus far is basically saying, in this area, a maximum of 260,000 gallons a day. Again, a far cry from the 2.1 million, a far cry from the 1.6 million. No additional discharge will be allowed at this site, now or ever. That limit will be enforced by the DEP discharge permit. It's something the town's agreed to. It's something we've already agreed to with the Coalition for Buzzards Bay, and it's a given. It'll be treated with tertiary treatment before it's discharged, bringing the nitrogen concentration down to 3 milligrams per liter. The raw sewage that comes into the plant is around 40 to 80. By way of comparison, the EPA drinking water standard for nitrogen concentration in drinking water is 10. So in terms of nitrogen, the discharge from this plant will be less nitrogen by far than the EPA allows in drinking water. Phosphorus, which is the main concern for the freshwater ponds, the concentration will be brought down to 2.5 milligrams per liter. The sewage that comes in is around 9. And finally, the other piece that has changed since town meeting is that there were originally 2 sites being considered, Site 7, which is the one we're talking about now, and Site 10, which is one further up to the north. Site 10 was eliminated for the simple reason that it was going to impact Wing Pond. And they didn't get on it, and that was the end of Site 10. So that is where we have come so far. And now comes the hard part, we'll see who's going to address it.